मैत्रीं भजत अखिलः जेत्रे मैत्रीं भजत अखिलः जेत्रे मैत्रीं भजत अखिलः जेत्रे आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणम् त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणम् मैत्रीं भजत अखिलः जेते मैत्रीं भजत अखिलः जेते जननी पृथिवी कामदुघाते जननी पृथिवी कामदुघाते जनको देवः सकल दयालुः जनको देवः सकल दयालुः दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां
Namaste, dear friends and patrons of music. I am very pleased to share this presentation on Vedic perspectives on acoustics at the International Music Conference and Festival organized by a very active the Indira Nagar Sangeeta Sabha, Bangalore, India. I want to thank all the organizers of this conference and especially my friend Dr. R. Balasubramaniam for making this presentation remotely possible. So the topic as we see is the Vedic perspectives on acoustics. So as we know, Vedic perspective also can be seen as the Hindu perspective, as Hinduism and have the Vedic literature as the source. So to begin with, we have the various manifestations of the Supreme Being, and one of the manifestations is Goddess Saraswati, who is the goddess of knowledge, goddess of art, music, and also speech. Now here, Saraswati is holding Veena, which is an instrument of music, and also in yogic view, it represents the spinal cord in human beings. Then we have the Lord Krishna, who is the divine flute player. And here the flute represents again the human body, and the holes in that flute represents the various chakras in the yogic view. Then we have the cosmic dancer Lord Shiva, who is beating the drums to indicate symbolically the sounds of creation. And so thus we see the various gods and goddesses. Many of them carry the instruments of music to tell us that music is a sacred art in Hinduism. Then we go to a well-known paper written by the famed Nobel laureate Sir C.V. Raman, who worked on acoustics first before he worked on optics. And in this paper, Acoustical Knowledge of Ancient Hindus, he says it would form a fascinating chapter of history to try and trace the gradual development of musical instruments and musical knowledge from the rhythmic chanting of Rig Veda in the ancient homes of the Aryan race to the Indian music of the present day. So what he has indicated is there is a continuity and continuous link from the chants to the current musical development that has happened in Hinduism. So it's very interesting to see this connection as we see in this presentation. Now, one of the important concepts that is of relevance to us is how sound is in the Vedic order of natural elements connected to space. Now, we have a mantra in Narayana Upanishad which says, Kham Vayur Jyotirapa Prithvi Vishwasya Dharini. What this means is, in the order of manifestation of this universe, the space element came first, and then the air, then fire, then water, then earth. Then corresponding to these natural elements, the sense of perception, the sound, is the only one which is connected to space. So which means space and sounds are uniquely connected to each other. And this also makes sense in terms of a reverberation characteristics of a room or a space, how sound is dependent on that. Then the air comes through the touch, and of course the sound is carried through air. Similarly, we go with the three senses of perception for fire, and 4 for water, and 5 for earth. So which summarizes to us that space is characterized by only sound, and sound is the most subtle sense of perception which goes with the space. So then we come to this, the Vedas, as we talked about earlier. It's a collection of mantras. Now, mantras are specific utterances or chants which are the sonic vibrations in the form of sentences. These sonic vibrations were received by the sages in the transcendental state of meditation. And these chants, which were heard from them, were orally transmitted to disciples. Then that process continued from that time till even now. It is happening, the transfer of mantras. The acoustical aspects of the mantras bring in precision in intonations and phonetics. So, which means the mantras have to be very correct in terms of the intonation and the phonetical accuracy. Then we have what is known as the intrinsic pitch difference, which is observed in speech. Now that can be overridden in the mantras. For example, if we produce the sound of ah and So when we have this sound of A and E in the speech, so there is an intrinsic pitch difference between the two sounds. But in the chanting mode, what happens, the chanter overrides and minimizes that pitch difference, which puts the listeners into an alternate domain. And that gives a sonic experience of the mantras, in addition to the profound meaning of these Veda mantras. So thus the oral transfer of the knowledge through ages, through the sonic vibrations, has come through memory, which is a very important aspect of this transfer. Then let us take an example of a mantra, how it brings in the acoustical aspect. Here we have the 5 modes. The source code is what is known as the Samhita Pata. Then when it is broken in the form of word, single word, then we have Pada Pata. Then in a sequential, then we have Krama. Then in the form of a braid, then it is called as Jata. Then in a complex sequence, we call it as Ghana. Now here, the symbol that we have for the accent or the pitch here, when we see the vertical line above a letter here, then it's a high accent. Then this is the low accent, the horizontal line, and the one without any marks are the medium accent. And in Sanskrit we call them as Swarita, Anudatta and Udatta. So let us see how it sounds. Namaha Shivaya Cha. When we break it, Namaha Shivaya Cha. Then when we make it sequential, Namah Shivaya Shivaya Cha. In the Jata form, Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namo Namah Shivaya Shivaya Cha Cha Shivaya Shivaya Cha. Then in the Ghana, Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namo Namah Shivaya Cha Cha Shivaya Namo Namah Shivaya Cha Shivaya Cha Cha Shivaya Shivaya Cha. So thus we see the short sentence like this can go through so much of the variation in the various modes. Now we can imagine how we have long paragraphs and literature maintained and sustained in these modes. Now in the next slide we have a short video clip. In Vedic schools, the way they maintain this knowledge is by through sustained practice. And in this example here, a school from Sarvaraya Veda Pathashala in Andhra Pradesh, we have here 2 rows of Vedic Pandits, and each row will chant in alternate cycles. And also in this lead person's finger we see the various vibrations coming through in terms of his expression. So let us listen to this Vedic video clip and see. So this is how it is practiced in Vedic schools. In the next slide, here we have a very important slide which gives the various process that it takes for sound to manifest as speech or music. Let us go from outside to inside. In the external sphere we have what is called as Vaikhari. And of course the very obvious common form of Vaikhari expression is in the music as vocal, and in the dance also we have the background music. Then in the speech we have the sound form, then in the language, then in the drama we use the speech form. Then in the literature we have the various aspects of the acoustical features will come in the figures of speech or in the meter. Then of course in the spiritual world also we have the nada, the shabda, then japa. So these four spheres tells us that the Vaikhari, the expressed form of sound. But behind this is what is known as the Madhyama, which comes through the medium, internal medium. Then behind that is what is known as the Pashyanti, the reflective stage, and behind that is what is known as the Para or the causal. So these four stages describe the whole process, how the sound manifests from inside a human being to outside at various stages. And all of these are referred to what is called as ahata, that is one which is produced through vibratory causes. Now we will see more of this in the scriptures, how they are referred as we go further. In the next one, I would like to read here a quotation from my Guru Yogi Seer Sriranga Sadguru on nada. Just as from a seed comes naturally sprout, branch, leaf, flower, unripe fruit and full fruit, likewise, starting from spiritual light as seed, the nada, swara and aksharas have developed into the various aspects of knowledge. So we can see here the Supreme Being referred as the Jyoti, spiritual light, and that gets in the form of the various aspects of nada, swara and akshara that we have seen in the acoustical aspects. So then we go to this verse from Gana Rahasya Prakashini, which describes the whole process of what happens when a person wants to speak or sing or to produce a sound. Atma vivakshamano yam manah prerayate. Manah nabhistam vanhimahanti sa prerayati marutam. Brahma granti stito nada kramadu dhapate charan. Nabi hrutkanta murdhasye shwavir bhavati sadhvani. So the dhvani, the sound form of it, an individual with a desire to speak encourages his or her mind. Then the mind strikes the heat or the fire energy at the center, at the navel, then pushes the air, uniting with this heat, then it moves through as energy through the stomach, heart, throat and mouth, and as audible sound that we have seen earlier as Vaikhari. So now once this sound is produced, then we go to the next aspect, that is the listener, how the listener is brought into the experience of the speaker or the singer. Now this is from Yajurveda, which describes that process. Panchanadya saraswati mapi yanti sasrotasa saraswati tu panchada so desho bhavat sari. So which means the five organs of cognition emanating from their source, the mind, like five rivers speed onward to speech. So as we see here, the flowing speech in its dwelling place mouth then becomes fivefold again in the listener. So what this means in a pictorial here, the universe is the source of information, of experiences. Then the speaker or the singer, through the cognitive senses, he gets all these senses to give the experience, then taken through the mind of the speaker or the singer, then brought through the speech or his mouth as the organ, then again transfers to the listener who maps into his or her senses of perception. So this completes the whole process, and as we see, the sound has a very pivotal role here in this whole process. So with this, we go into some more details on this four-fold process that we talked about earlier. Vaikhari shabda nishpatti madhyama smriti gocharaha dyotikarthasya pashyanti sukshma brahmaiva kevalam. Here, Vaikhari is word manifestation. Then behind that is Madhyama, which is at the memory level. So memory is the medium through which the sound gets manifested. Now behind the memory level, of course, is the intentive or reflective level, if we call it the Pashyanti. Now behind that is, of course, the causal stage or the Para. Now this is in the psycho-spiritual aspect that we are describing. When we bring in the human body, the operators for producing the sound, then we see here Mooladhara Pratama Mudito Yastu Bhavah Parakyaha Pashyat Pashyantato Hridayago Buddhi Madhyamakyaha Vaktre Vaikharya Ruditoshasya Janto Sushumna Baddhastasmad Bhavati Pavana Prerito Varna Sangaha. Which means here the manifested air-driven letters and assemblies first are caught at the Mooladhara, which is a chakra in the yoga terminology at the base of the spine, then at the heart chakra as Pashyanti, then through the intelligence as Madhyama, it comes to the mouth as the Vaikhari. Throat and the mouth is here, and that is the Vaikhari. And all this process happens in the Sushumna, which is the central energy carrying channel, we call it as Nadi in the spinal cord. Then one more reference here which puts them together again, Paravang Moola Chakrastha Pashyanti Nabhisamstita Hrudghatu Madhyama Agneya Vaikhari Kantadeshaga. So here it means that the para stage of speech, the root stage of the speech in the human body is at the base of the spine, then Pashyanti stage is at the navel, and then the Madhyama stage at the heart, and Vaikhari at the throat. So in terms of the chakras, this becomes the Mooladhara chakra, and this becomes the Manipura chakra, and this becomes the Anahata chakra, and this becomes the Vishuddhi chakra in that process of sound production. So with that we move to another important aspect of the acoustical features of the language Sanskrit, because we know lot of literature of Hinduism is in Sanskrit. So what are the acoustical aspects of Sanskrit? The sound assigned to alphabet do not change. What it means is here, if we say ta, now the way I write ta and the sound ta, they always go together. So wherever I write that symbol, I pronounce it as ta. And that gives an advantage for the correlation between the shape and the sound. Then we have, in the second concept here, the desired words usually have some acoustic similarity with the root. What it means is, if I take for example the verbal root vid, that means to know. So when I say vidya, it becomes knowledge. Vidvat, it becomes scholarship. Vidyarthi, it becomes student. Then Vidyalaya, it becomes university. So we can see the acoustical similarity between the roots and the words. Then we have the third concept, large number of alphabets and hence large number of basic sounds. For example, we say we have 25 consonants, basically, more or less, and each consonant can be linked with the 16 vowels, so which makes us a large collection of sounds. To give an example, if I say dha, now this dha can be combined with the vowels dha dha, dhi dhi, dhru, de dhai, dho, dham, daha. So we can see likewise we can make sounds for each consonant with the vowels, and that will give a large assembly of sounds which will be very helpful to produce various emotions in the speech. Then we have the next concept of the soft aspirant and hard aspirant and the nasal or anunasika. Now here I would like to show an example which is very visual. Now the soft aspirant means alpa prana and hard aspirant means mahaprana. So in alpa prana we really don't push too much air out of our mouth, whereas in mahaprana we push considerably large amount of air when we produce the alphabet. So to give an example, if I hold this napkin here and I say, for example, the alpa prana, ga, ga. If I use the mahaprana, ga, pa, pa, ta, ta. So as we see here, every time we produce mahaprana, we are pushing air out, and so that will make a very specific spiritual exercises within, especially when you are reciting Sanskrit verses praising the gods. For example, in Vishnu Sahasranama, Vishvam Vishnur Vashatkaro Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu Bhuta Krud Bhuta Vrud Bhavo Bhutatma Bhuta Bhavana. Like that, we get that spiritual activity also along with the recitation. Then in the next one, we have a very good correlation between sound and the script that we talked about earlier. Now, such sounds also will enable us for memorization, and that is why we call it as shruti, heard and remembered. Then the next one is effect of sandhi relates to places of utterance. This sandhi is a very important aspect. Now here in sandhi, if I take two words, Gana and Isha, and I combine them, it produces a new sound called Ganesha. Now the way it happens is interesting. Gana ends in A, which is manifested in the throat. Isha begins with the sound E, which is activated through the tongue. So when I combine Gana and Isha quickly, without any time gap between them, Gana, Isha, Ganesha. So it becomes Ganesha, and the sound A is activated by the interaction of the throat and the tongue. And that is how the sandhi formation, which is very helpful in the acoustical effect as well as for the memorization. So moving to the next aspect of the sound or the acoustics in through the speech. Now here, speech has dual abilities, and we know it can console when it is peacefully and softly spoken, or it can provoke when anger comes through the speech. Then speech should be truthful and pleasant. So which means a pleasant speech has certain acoustical behavior or acoustical pattern which will be nice to the listener. Then in Ashtanga Yoga, that is in the 8 limbs of yoga, the first step called Yama has its first component as the truthful speech. So wherein we bring this pleasantness and the truthfulness together. Then there is a verse in Sanskrit which ends with Vanyeka samalankaroti purusha ya samskruta dharyate, which means a cultured speech is an essential ornament for a cultured person. Then we also know that the speaking and listening are both possible for every person who is gifted with that from God as for spiritual development. So which means one should use speaking and listening not only for transactional use but also for spiritual development. Then we have another aspect of the words, what we call as the holy name. We know that all religions emphasize on singing the glories and the name of the Lord. Here we have some quotations which indicate that In Hinduism, a quotation from a well-known master, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, at the clap of the hands, the birds as sins in the tree as our body fly away, so do our sins disappear at the chanting of God's name and glories. In Sikhism, we hear, by obtaining the water of God's name through the Guru, quench the four fires, namely cruelty, worldly love, anger, and greed. In Islam, remember the name of thy Lord at morning and evening. Then in Zoroastrianism, what is the first thing we should teach the child when it begins to speak? We must first teach him the name of God and then name of our prophet. A Zen thinker says, the medicine is the calling upon the name of Amida, and it is wrapped up in the 6-syllable Na Mu A Mi Butsu. It means absolute concentration on Amida's name. For this medicine, no capital or special wisdom is needed. All one has to do is recite the words with mouth. Here indeed is the pivot of fundamental power. So we see even in other religions, as we know, the importance of word, as in Christianity we know that. So then we come to another important aspect, as we saw earlier, the music. Now music is a sacred art in Hinduism, as we said earlier. Sounds, especially from nature, chants like mantras, and the music provide joy and spiritual experiences. Music in Sanskrit is called as Sangeeta, which includes vocal music, instrumental music, and dance. The notes of music are derived from nature, and music and dance are part of religious offering in Hindu worship. So in Hindu practices, we say Geetam Shravayami, Nrityam Darshayami. I would like to bring a quote from my Guru Yogisiya Sriranga Sadguru, who says music should become the bridge that takes the listeners from sensual level to the spiritual level of Atman. So music is not just for entertainment only, but also a bridge to enlightenment. Then we see how the swaras are linked to the animals, and the notes sa to peacock, re to cow, ga to goat, ma to crouch bird, pa nightingale, dha to horse, and ni to the elephant. So we see that these sounds, these notes can be seen in the sounds of these animals. Now combination of these will lead into the raga, as we know very well. There are hundreds of ragas, and a raga is a pleasing combination of these notes. Raga also provides spiritual experience, especially in the alapana stage, and raga also depicts moods and sentiments of the theme of the song. Then we have in this musical instrument, which is the tabla and mridangam. Now we know that this tabla and mridangam has a membrane, which is a two-dimensional structure, for which the harmonic relationship are not valid. But somehow, because of this design of this black paste on the membrane, the tabla and mridangam are able to produce up to 5 modes in harmonic relationship with the fundamental. So that is why melody also comes in along with the rhythm for both mridangam and tabla. And this was first discovered by Sir C.V. Raman, and then it was shown mathematically valid through research of Dr. B.S. Ramakrishna and Sondhi at Indian Institute of Science. Then here we have a bamboo flute from which we have taken the distances of the various holes and then calculated from that the scales for various notes theoretically, and then we have played this bamboo flute for various notes and then experimentally calculated the scale, and we see a very good correlation between the two, which means the art of making bamboo flute from ancient times have been corresponding with these scale calculations. Here we have a video clip of a flute concert by Vidwan Raman, in which he changes the flute in the middle of a song. Let us listen to the clip. Here we see the change of the flute. Then when we go to the next slide here we see the correlation between the sound and the shape, and done through the complex mapping here. And this is the sound produced by Yogi Sri Sriranga Sadguru. And when it is done through mapping for these frequencies in the sound of Om, we see the shape coming out, which corresponds to a significant part of the Om, the way in the written form. Then we get this same repetitive result from the chanting of Om from Tibetan Lamas, and this was published in Journal of Acoustical Society, and we see a similar result to show that these are universal experiences. Here we have the correspondence between the Veena and the spinal cord that I mentioned earlier, and this is taken from the lectures Amaravani by Sriranga Sadguru. Here is another interesting result from the physicist Tyndall's experiment. When the Bunsen flame is impinged by a sound of single frequency at particular frequency, we see that Bunsen flame bursts into 7 tongue, and it's a repetitive result, and Tyndall calls it a 7-tongue flame. And the 7 tongue refers to, in the Hindu scriptures, as the 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 2 nostrils, and the mouth. And this whole thing becomes what we call as the Sapta Jihva, the 7th tongue, which is also the name of Lord Vishnu. Then, as we heard in the beginning of the presentation, the conch shell sound, and we see the internal cavity here in the conch shell, and the sound from it is coming from, it's a very sharp peak, the first frequency, and with a very high quality factor. The Q factor is so high, that is why it is a captivating sound for the listeners. And that is why in the temples we use both the ghanta, that is the bell, and then we have and also the conch shell that we will see in this video clip. So, in the video clip here, we see another interesting aspects of acoustical feature in actual physical construction of temple. In Vijayanagar Empire, this is taken from musical pillars, where the special musical producing tones are coming out of these stones, and that is used in the construction. And the video clip shows that very nice tones come out of this. So thus we see that the acoustical aspects are covered in many different dimensions in this here, and some concepts would like to recollect. Sound is a property of space. Air is carrier of sound. Sound with form is letter. Sound is generated through heat and air unison. And speech, as we have seen earlier, is the fourth stage of in sound production in the human beings. Sound propagates spatially, and the name and the word are inseparable. They always go together. Then we have the various sound concepts we have. Sound effectively carries information. Sound connects source, path, listener. Sound is the subtle body. Sound is the subtle body of the object. Then the speech connects both thought and action. That is why we say speech, thought, action. Sound gives totality to action, like in karate sounds. Solitude or silence, absence of sound. Memory is always associated with sound. Usually that's when we remember the sound of a person. Sound is the thread in necklace of letters. And sound is the subtlest connecting link to the world. Even in dark, we can hear. So with this, we bring another important aspect, the spiritual role of the sound. Here we have two verses. Sadashivoktani sapada laksha layavadhanani vasanti loke nadhanusandhana samadhimekam manyamahe manyatamam layanam. So there are innumerable approaches to attain spiritual development and bliss. However, it's our view that the approach through nada, sound, focusing on that is most effective. Then, sarvachintam parityajya savadhanena chetasa nada evanu sandheyo yoga samrajyamichata. Those who wishes to achieve excellence in yoga can use sound, nada, as a very effective means and focus on that by overcoming distractions. So with that, we see this short poem that I was inspired to write. And, O sound, you surround everything around. You are everywhere to be heard. You are outside but also inside. You are produced ever in nature. You come from humans and machines. You are with motions and patterns. As an annoying noise, you displease someone. As a diagnostic tool, you are useful to someone. As a painful noise, you can hurt anyone. As a soothing music, you comfort everyone. It isn't easy to place you as a music or noise. Either wanted or unwanted, you are always sound. So with this, we will conclude with the various aspects we talked about already. Nada yoga is union of source, path, receiver through vibration, sound, or what we call spanda and nada. Shabda is the manifestation of Supreme Being. It is essential pathway for spiritual development. Then we talked about the fourfold description of the sound in sense of production. They describe the various levels of consciousness. The word object is a unitary identity. Nada, resulting from movement, what we call it the ahata nada, and of course we did not even touch upon the anahata nada, which is in the world of yoga. Is a seed of articulation and manifestation of various expressions. They related as seed and tree. Supreme Being manifests itself through nada and spiritual energy in the form of devatas or deities. Then, listening with receptive and pure mind is essential in spiritual path and development. That is why the scriptures talk about Shruti, Shravana, Shtotavya. Purity of mind, clarity and precision in phonetics and devotion leads to spiritual experiences through japa, bhajan, music, mantra, chants. Sound is the most subtle measure, and sound and space are eternally united. Sound and space are both bodies of Supreme Being. As we saw earlier, Om is the name and form of the Supreme. Of course, we know that sound plays a major role in spiritual development of human beings, in addition to its important role in arts and culture. So with this, I would like to acknowledge my deep gratitude to my Guru Yogi Seer, His Holiness Sriranga Sadguru of Ashtanga Vijnana Mandiram, Mysore, whose guidance and blessings enables my Vedic studies and work. Also, My deep gratitude to His Holiness Sri Ranga Priya Swami of Ashtanga Vignan Mandiram of Bangalore for his guidance and help, and my grateful thanks to Dr. V. Shadagopan and Mr. Chetan Bhatt for their help in making this presentation. So I'd like to thank you all for your patient listening, and let us close this with the sound of the conch shell.